Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the Anywhere Uni live podcast. Tonight, I'm with Ilaria. Ilaria is representing the Università Cattolica in Milan. How are you, Ilaria?
Hi, ciao, everyone. Very nice. And thank you so much, Alban, for the opportunity. Very happy to be with you.
No, it's nice to see you. We've known each other for a few years now, and it's too bad we couldn't do this in person. And actually, we were just saying that just before the live. I've been to Milan, but I haven't visited Cattolica yet. But this is on my bucket list for the near future.
You are invited. Absolutely.
All right. So can you, first of all, briefly introduce yourself for the people that are listening? What's your story and your role within Cattolica?
Of course, with pleasure. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for being here and for listening. I'll try to speak, let's say, with my hands as well. This is very common. I come from Italy. My name is Ilaria, and my role in the Università Cattolica is Associate Director for International Marketing and Recruitment. But I started, I would say, quite a few years ago in Cattolica as a student. So I am a proud alumna of my own university that I now work for. I studied international relations for languages, and then I went many times abroad. I studied German, English, and a little bit of Spanish. I moved on for my master's to political science. My core subjects were international relations, sustainability, but I still wanted to go abroad very often. So I passed very often by the international office. And so that's why by the end of my studying, they actually said, you know what, you know very much about going abroad, being a student abroad. Why don't you stay here? Why don't you join us and you help and facilitate international students to transition over and come to Cattolica? The job implied a lot of traveling. I was young, excited. And so I said, yes, that sounds like an amazing opportunity. And here I am 10 years after, still here, but loving what I do.
Oh, that's great. So can you tell us a bit more about Cattolica as an institution? Students know Italy, they know Milan, they often know Bocconi, and is another name that I always share with them is Cattolica. So how do you place yourself in the global markets for international students?
That's a very interesting and good question. I think Italy, first of all, because you started from the country, and I fully agree with you, it's a matter of location. And then secondly, we come to Milan, of course, an international city. Italy is on the rise in terms of interest from international students as a destination to study in. And I fully appreciate that the main reason is the location, the quality of life, the fact that we are in Europe, therefore a hub to many other European countries. So students for sure search quality of education. Italy has, in general, a long-standing tradition of high-quality universities, but also in terms of lifestyle and approachability to studying. There is so much more beyond what happens at the university. So I think this is why Italy, per se, is becoming very interesting. How do we place, internationally speaking and domestically speaking as well? Cattolica is a very strong, very reputable institution. In Italy, 100%, without a doubt. We actually come to mind very often to many students. What sets us apart, you mentioned Bocconi, for example, which is a respected peer, I would say, is that we are not only, if I can say, a business school, meaning that, of course, we have a business school, we have the School of Economics, Management, but Cattolica has 12 different schools. So there is a lot of interdisciplinarity happening as well among our programs. And as a matter of fact, I am from Milan, I live in Milan and work in Milan, but we have 5 campuses. So across the different cities in Italy, which are Brescia, Piacenza, Cremona, and Rome. When I usually do a presentation, I would show a map and give a little geography class to indicate where each campus is. But I think this is what very interesting about Cattolica is that every campus is very well embedded in the territory and therefore has very strong links with what's the most important thing, which is the world of work. So students study with us because they know that we will be qualified and highly employable to relevant companies in the territory around, but of course then internationally as well.
And so
this answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go for it. No, go for it. I wondered if this answered your question, and of course, feel free to ask me whatever.
Yeah. No, exactly. So, because each country will have their own prestigious institutions, and often these institutions teach in the language of the country. In France, we have the Sorbonne. We have that are very well known and respected in France, of course, but also internationally. How is Cattolica interesting for international students? Do you offer all your programs in English, some of your programs in English? Do you need to know Italian to go study there? How does it work?
Okay. So Cattolica is, of course, an Italian institution. You pointed that out very well, but we are offering more and more courses that are fully taught in English at an undergraduate level. So if we're talking to students that are finishing their high school and are thinking about their undergraduate studies in Italy, first of all, a bachelor degree in Italy is usually 3 years in duration. So this sets us aside also from other destinations such as Spain or sometimes the UK, the US as well.
Yep.
And if they study in English, there's no need to learn Italian. What we usually say, though, is that, of course, learning a little bit of the language can for sure help and facilitate. First of all, you enjoy your life better because you understand what's happening around you. Italian has been voted many times as one of the most beautiful language in the world. So I think
competing with French.
Your friend. I know. This is a strong competition we're having here. Let's say peer-to-peer here, right? And but yeah, I think it's a matter also of the experience that, as I was saying before, it goes well beyond the class. So don't worry, you don't need to speak Italian before you come, but we highly encourage you to pick up a little bit of the language, also watching movies, listening to the music. And you were mentioning, how is this relevant to international students? So right now on campus, we have 10% of our students that are international. We have over 140 nationalities, so we are very diverse. But in the programs that are fully taught in English, it's not a ratio of 90 to 10, it's a ratio of 50-50. So the English taught programs have a very strong international vocation. And in terms also not just of students that come study with us for the whole duration of their program, but for students that come maybe just for a semester, then Cattolica is the #1 destination for study abroad, semester exchange. I would say from the States for sure, but also from Spain, France, Germany. So Cattolica is really popular also for those kind of programs.
All right. There's a question I need to ask because it's in the name. How Catholic is Cattolica? Is it historically Catholic? Is it still embedded in the university? What can a student expect on that regard?
Of course. So Cattolica is, let's say, independent from that point of view. So sometimes I've been asked many funny questions like,
Sure.
are you owned by the church? Are you a nun yourself?
Are you part of the Vatican?
Exactly. No, but of course, Cattolica is a Catholic institution in terms of the values that inspired our founding that happened in 1921. So we're just a little bit over 100 years old. And that happened in a very critical moment of Italian history, where our founder, Padre Agostino Gemelli, decided to have a university that would be independent from what was happening in Italy at the time. 1921 was in between the two wars, so I don't want to go deep down into history, but it was a very important moment in which Cattolica wanted to provide, let's say, a different kind of education, so free from political influence, and give an equal opportunity for everybody. Actually, it was born as a university much devoted to the social aspect of training and preparing people that could actually then enter the labor market. We are research intensive nowadays. We're number 134 by the Times Higher in terms of research quality, but Cattolica has always had a very, I would say, hands-on approach from the very beginning. So Catholic to us means ethics. So we have every course that we teach always have, let's say, a counterpart of ethics values. And then in terms of the attention we put in the individuals. So for us, students also come with their emotions, dreams, sometimes problems. And that's why, especially at an undergraduate level, we always have services to support individuals in their growth with us. So that's what Catholic means for us.
Great. Thank you very much. So before we dive into the programs that you offer in English a bit more deeply, what is it like to be an international student in Milan? Is it safe? Is it easy to travel, to move around? Is it like a big city like London, or is it like a much smaller? And yeah, how does it feel?
I am biased. So I told you before, I'm from Milan. And I really, really like it, especially in the past 10 years. I would say Milan has changed a lot, becoming, first of all, an international and student city. I think a recent ranking came out possibly yesterday by a famous survey, actually Italian survey, that says Milan is the most livable city among the all Italian cities. So I would say this is a nice thing. It's full of events. So every month we have book fair, design festival. I'm sure you know of it, Design Week, Fashion Week, Jazz Week. Sometimes we have Wine Week. We hosted the expo, the International Expo in 2015. So this also contributed to the renovation. Also, architectonically speaking, from a point of view of architecture, it is a pleasant city to be in. But what I think sets us aside from many other beautiful locations such as Rome, Florence, is the combination between beauty, art, entertainment, and efficiency. And then the opportunity also to find a very good job. So moving around, I would say, is easy. We've got now 5 metro lines. One just opened really down from the university. So this is really convenient, taking us to the airport. We have 3 international airports. So as you were mentioning, can I travel around? Absolutely, this is one of the strong points for our international students. Maybe they come from really far away. They arrive in Milan and then they don't stop there. They take the train, they take the plane. It's really affordable, especially for students. And they move around, not just in Italy, but everywhere in Europe and even beyond. So I would say livable, smart, and student-friendly. And yeah, absolutely, you have to visit to try.
Yeah, and you were saying that there's also a good job market there, even for international students, or students usually go back to their home country right away, or how does it?
Yeah,
What's the dynamic?
I think this really depends on the nationality of the students. So we are very open to that. Many of our students also continue forward with a master degree. So it's 2 years of master degree. That's very common in Italy. But then we've had, honestly, all kind of students that come to Cattolica because they know that once they go back home, their title is recognized. The university is private, but it's fully acknowledged and recognized by our Ministry of Education. So very often some students desire to go back and continue studying or work in their home country. But then, of course, if they want to stay, they can either work or they can also move in other European countries or continue studying. So I would say it's very diverse. What we try to do is offer them counseling sessions for them to understand what they want to do and how they want to continue.
Okay. Perfect. So let's dive a bit now into your programs. What programs do you offer? Maybe you have too many to cite them all, but what are the key degrees that you can get fully in English at Cattolica?
Sure. Let's stick with the undergraduate degrees because
yes, just undergraduate.
There are not too many. If you bear with me, I may even be able to tell them all. So just for you to know, nowadays we have 10. We started off in 2013 with 1.
Wow.
This one was medicine and surgery. So I'll count with you because then I always forget 1 or 2, like the 7 dwarfs from Snow White that you count and then you say, oh, I'm missing 1. Okay. So the first one is medicine and surgery. This one is started in Rome because it's where we have our own hospital, which is Policlinico Gemelli, and it's number 36 in the world according to Newsweek. So it's a very reputable big hospital. Because it was so popular and because you can imagine, especially after COVID, there is a lack of doctors, we decided to, I don't want to say replicate, but open a second program. So this is number 2, always medicine and surgery, but in a different context, which is Bolzano. Bolzano is a city in the north of Italy, towards Austria. So we teach in English, but then students here learn Italian and German at the same time. Then the second program fully taught in English that came along in 2015 was economics and management. And here students can choose to start the first 2 years of both economics and management and then choose in the third year between one or the other specialization. Then always in the subject area of management, we have in economics, we have business and finance. Then we have international relations and global affairs, more in the area of political science, communication management, psychology. We recently opened criminology as an interesting program. That's why I'm mentioning this after psychology. And then we have a very peculiar one, which is food production management in our campus in Piacenza. And this is a combination of management applied to the agricultural food industry, which is one of the main GDP entries in our country. So very interesting, very important. Every time I present, I say, if you eat pasta and if you know Nutella, that's exactly what we're talking about.
All right, that's amazing. Okay, so yeah, quite a variety of programs. As you said, you're not just a business school. You have programs that are more focused in that area, but you also have medicine in English. You actually started with that, and psychology and criminology, which is not something you can find everywhere. Okay, and so what, in terms of academics, what kind of maybe it's very different from program to program, but what's kind of the rhythm? Like in the UK, they don't have that many hours of contact hours per week. It's like 10, 12 hours a week. And yeah, what's the profile academically? What does it look like?
So I would say if you study at Cattolica, if you study in Italy in general, university is, I don't want to say hard, but it is demanding. But I think it's also very rewarding because, of course, you would, and you live the experience. So we have an urban campus, which means that very often you would live nearby the university, not on campus. But at the same time, there are actually many contact hours. It's very different from a UK style kind of teaching where maybe you have a class per week of a subject and then you are by yourself in the library researching and writing essays or papers. At Cattolica, it's very different. You have many contact hours with your professor, with your teammates, with your classmates. You are asked, of course, maybe to come up with presentation, teamworks. Usually exams then are at the end of the semester or the year, and you have to study as well. But I would say that the courses I mentioned to you, apart from medicine and surgery, which is a different animal, most of the courses are actually very study focused, research focused, but very hands-on from the very beginning. So you live and breathe the spirit of the university. You're not by yourself at the library studying and researching. Absolutely not. I truly enjoyed my time there because I made friends, because at the end of every class, maybe if you finish by 5 p.m., there's always the chance to go out together for an aperitivo, or maybe there is, I don't know, a football match. So I really mean it. You really live the university.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Well, yeah, and I know the medicine is a different animal. It usually is. We'll talk about medicine specifically a bit later. But maybe for all the other programs first, what does the application process look like? Is it too late already for final year student, grade 12 students to apply? Can they still apply? And what's the process like? What do you need? What are you looking for?
Sure. So no, it's not too late to apply. Actually, possibly very differently from other universities, we just opened applications for next year. So 12-year students, if you like what you're hearing, you're very welcome to apply. This is the perfect time. What are we looking for? I would say is a mix. So we are really looking forward to having students who want to study with us. In the first place, I would say the so-called fit. Motivation, passion is something we really look at, especially for the non-medical programs, because we ask for a motivation letter. And then, for example, in psychology, there is an interview with the faculty, and they really want to get to know their class because they're trying to build well-balanced class. And for sure, motivation is the key aspect. So when you write your motivation letter, maybe ask help to ChatGPT, but please review it and make it personal, make it about you. Then in terms of what we ask is a CV. So we want to see what you do beyond, beyond school. What are your passions? If you have any voluntary work that you've done, any extracurricular program. We want to get to know you. And then, of course, is the school grades. But I would also say the kind of subjects that you studied, because very often, if you want to study, I don't know, international relations, if you took geography, history, languages, this would be very good in order to apply. If you want to instead study economics and management or finance, a solid background in mathematics is absolutely important, because then you will need it and you will use it during the 3 years. Then in terms of what we're looking for is also diversity. I mentioned that at the beginning, we have 140 different nationalities. We really try to give you also an international experience, not just on campus, but also in class. So we really look forward to having different students from different nationalities contributing also back to the class. So these are our main criteria. Applications will close for most programs at the end of February. So my suggestion would be apply now, but pay attention, because again, competition can be tough. So I really know my admission officers look at every single application. They get to know you, and then they really care for the documents you submitted. So yes, apply early, but make sure that your application is bulletproof. So everything is there.
All right. So let's some technical questions. Do you look at academic record from the last 2 years, 3 years? Do you start in grade 9, which would be troisième in the French system, or grade 10, which is seconde, or even later? Do you need to have a transcript in the final year, like grades in the final year? What are you looking for?
So we usually look for the last 2 years of high school. And so if they apply during their 12th year, it would be the 11th year and whatever they have already of the 12th year. This allows us to understand what is the trajectory of the student, whether they were consistent with their grades, especially for the core subjects that are relevant to what they're going to study with us. I know in the French system, grades are very strict, to say the least. And our admission officers are very acquainted with the French system, so they know exactly what to look for also in terms of grades. If there is any doubt or any question, then we would reach out to the student for clarification, additional documents. But I would say also the application procedure is online, very easy, very straightforward. And if I'm not mistaken, because our admission officers speak French, if there is no material at the time of application translated into English, French is fine as well.
So that was my next question. They need to have everything officially translated and certified in English. I'm sure if they do, that's great. But if they don't, we're neighbor enough that you have people in your team that can understand it.
Exactly.
Okay. But the classes are not in French, so they need to prove their level of English. So how do you assess that? What kind of tests can they take? Would you recognize, I don't know if you're aware of the BFE, the French International French Bac. Would that be something that could be considered as a proof of English, or do they all have to take an English language test?
So that's a very good question. I wanted to mention that before I forgot, so thank you so much. Classes are taught in English, and of course, having a good level of English is important. Italy, though, it's not the US or the UK, so we're also not native speakers in Italy. So I would say that a B2, a solid B2, is good enough to get by. Of course, we also have international faculty, so you will also hear a variety of accents during your 3 years with us. What can you do? If you studied fully in English during your high school, then we don't need further proof of English language. If you didn't, then we ask you to have a certification such as IELTS. We would usually accept 6.0, or TOEFL, that would be 80, or Cambridge certification such as first certificate. But as you understand, that would be a level of B2, so upper intermediate English. Usually certifications are also presented on our website, and every year we try to get more and more inclusive in terms of the certifications we accept. So I think for a very pointedly and timely verification, you can always check the website or contact us if you have any peculiar new kind of certification. In certain cases, as I mentioned before, there is also an interview. So I would say, yes, the certification is absolutely important. You need to have it by the time you apply, but also we want to see students comfortable with speaking the language and, yes, making mistakes as well. But we want to see the capability of expressing themselves, of communicating. I would say that's even more important.
And so that interview, is it, we'll talk about medicine later, but is it only for psychology, or do you have it?
That's only for psychology. Of course, students can also talk to us, me, my team, the admissions office. So we also try to help and understand how well they would be able to do in terms of their English language capacity.
Do you have support in English at the university, or do students have to take English classes, or they just take classes in their subject when they're at university?
So they would take in subjects in English, but there are certain programs that would have, for example, English for academic purposes or business English. So all those kind of terms that even maybe for an English native speaker are not that common or are not that, obvious. So some programs would have also, I don't know, English or language for media. So there are certain declinations, but pure English language to bring the student up to level, no. What can happen is that if a student wants to then go abroad, imagine you are in your third year, you did your certification maybe 4 years ago, it's no longer valid, and maybe you want to go abroad for an internship or a semester exchange, then we offer you the opportunity as a student at Cattolica to take courses and then get maybe a refresh on your certification. That can also happen for sure.
All right, great. Do you need any recommendation letter from the school? Any documents from the school?
No, usually no. We need that at master's level, but at undergraduate level, this is usually of help for high school counselors. They say, okay, one less recommendation letter to write. I mean, if students have it, put it there. Of course, this helps, but it's absolutely not mandatory. So don't worry about that.
All right. Predicted grades, if they have them, do you take them mandatory, not mandatory?
So not mandatory at all. The policy from my colleagues at the international office, at the admissions office, is that they prefer to calculate the GPA by themselves rather than stick with the predicted grades, because we know it varies much from school to school, and sometimes it's not exactly a prediction actually of what the students will do, because either they stay very low to push the student to do better, so it doesn't make them justice. So that's why we calculate the GPA.
All right. No standardized tests, no SAT or internal exams to take?
So for most of the programs, no. I would say that SAT or our own test, which is called TIEC, TIEC, is usually asked by our colleagues only if there are doubts about the mathematics level when studying economics and management mainly, or if they come, the SAT, if they come from the American high school system. Then the SAT comes as a useful, I would say, addendum to their own qualification. But I would say for the most part, not necessary.
That's great. Very clear. Thank you. What about tuition fees? How does it work? Is it the same for everyone? Do you have different fees based on if you're EU passport or a resident of the EU, or there's no difference? What does it look like?
So it's very, I would say, convenient for international students compared to maybe other destinations that tend usually to penalize very much international students in terms of tuition fees. So we have, I would say, 3 main blocks. And you mentioned correctly, it's the fiscal residence that makes the difference rather than the passport. So the first one is the Italian fiscal residence. and they would pay according to the family income between certain brackets. But I would say possibly in our audience today, we don't have anyone of that case. If you do, please then raise your hand later on when you have questions, and I'm happy to answer more specifically. Then we have the European students. So for them, it's a flat fee, around 6,000 euros per year. And so there's no surprises and very early on what they're looking for. And then international, say non-EU students, they are looking at 8,500 euros per year. But then we offer an international scholarship that can reduce the tuition fee down to 5,600 per year. So roughly, I would say that the cost varies between 6,000, 5,600 per year for the international students.
Nice. And the scholarship,
So that makes it quite...
is it merit based on their grades, or is it based on...
Yes.
They have to apply for it?
So for the non-EU students, the scholarship is merit-based.
Okay.
That's because it's very difficult to evaluate financial documents coming from everywhere in the world. So we decided to make it merit-based, and you don't have to apply separately, but it comes along the application process. So our international admission office will look automatically into your grades, motivation, all the elements that I mentioned before. It would allow you to be admitted, and at the time of admission, you would also know whether you got the scholarship or not.
Great, thank you. So let's talk a bit about medicine before we conclude and open to questions. What's different about medicine in terms of let's stay in the application process for now. Different timelines, different things that are required, I imagine?
Everything. So how much time do we have now? 10 minutes? I'll be as quick as possible.
Yeah.
You really hit the nail on the head. It's very different. Also in terms, I would say, of the kind of students that want to study medicine. So you need to be very passionate about it, very focused. You need to want it. It's not just, I would say, a career path. It's a vocation. It's a lifestyle, really. It's your passion. So to begin with, in Italy, medicine and surgery is 6 years. So before we spoke about 3 years, this is 6 years. And then it's very common after the 6 years to continue with a specialization, which is between 3 and 5 years. So you're looking to a very long time of studying, but of course, very rewarding and a profession that is quite requested right now. How do you get admitted to our program? Actually, both programs, Rome and Bolzano. There is an entrance exam. So first of all, you would apply with the documents that I mentioned before as well, grades, CV. We don't request a motivation letter. We think the fact that you are applying for medicine is a motivation enough. And then English language certificate. And then we will evaluate that you qualify to sit our entrance exam. And then you will have the entrance exam is once per year. And it's fully online, both for non-EU and EU students. The one for Rome, applications are open and the entrance exam will be in March. The one for Bolzano, applications will open in January and the entrance exam will be in May. And you can apply for both. So you can also see how you perform in the first one for Rome and then decide to sit or not sit the one for Bolzano. How is the exam? It is 65 questions in 65 minutes. So we recommended you actually exercise before sitting the test, because it's not just a matter of the subject, but it's a matter of time management, stress management. And the subjects that we are looking for are, you can imagine, biology, chemistry, mathematics, logic, and a few questions on ethics, to refer back to what we were saying before. So there are many students applying every year. Those who would take the entrance exam will then be ranked. And then we will call the first 70 according to how many spots we have in the class. And we will invite them to enroll. And if somebody doesn't confirm, we will go down the ranking until the class is full.
All right. No interview?
No interview. Nope.
Okay. And what would be so in France, we have this, in French, with the French back, we have this system of special subjects, specialties. Students in grade 11 can choose easily math, biology, and physics and chemistry. But then in the final year of high school, they have to drop one. They can only keep two specialties. They could keep biology and then physics and chemistry as the two subjects and then take the complementary math, or they could keep math as one of the special subjects with physics and chemistry and drop the biology. Would you consider both profile, or is there one profile that has to be the one to,
We would absolutely consider both. You said they can pick easily. I don't know whether that's an easy pick for anybody to pick chemistry, biology, math. I mean, kudos to you do that.
For students that want to do medicine, I guess it might be.
You have to be prepared. My suggestion from what I'm seeing right now is that the components of biology and chemistry come in very often, and they're very important. Maybe maths a little bit less. What we do in order to help you prepare is we also have prep courses. So in case you are following a curriculum that is a little bit weaker on one of the aspects, you can also decide to prepare with us and compensate for whatever subject. You don't need to score 65 out of 65. I think that happened maybe twice in our 11 years of the program. So, of course, you can also decide to play the test strategically. You know that you will ace, you will be very good at the chemistry, biology, physics part, and maybe you'll be a little bit weaker on the other parts. What we also suggest is don't answer if you're not sure, because wrong answers detract some points.
That's good to know.
So that's why I say it's a matter of strategy as well.
And so how competitive is it? Like, do you have a ballpark number for students to gauge? Like, is it something they can dream of, or is it just so competitive that it's just?
I would say it is competitive, of course. I'm sorry, it's medicine. It is competitive, but I wouldn't say it is impossible. For sure, prepare for the entrance exam. We have an online simulator. The more you know what you're going to face, and I can understand maybe you will try 3, 4, 6 different entrance exams. So I understand it's a lot to ask of you, but I think your chances to be admitted and be competitive also sit in how well you know the entrance exam. For example, I think in terms of spots available, the Rome campus is more focused on international non-EU students. We have 70 spots available, 70. And then on the EU side, so French, Italian, Spanish, German, we have 40. What is happening right now is that the Ministry of Education is asking us every year also to expand the number of seats. At a point, maybe we will even duplicate the courses in Rome.
Wow.
If it's possible. In Bolzano, it's a bit reverted. So we have 50 spots for European students and 10 for non-European students. My suggestion would be, if you're keen on studying at Cattolica, which is very well known for its medical program, I would say try both. Of course, they are two very different realities, two very different programs, although you study the same thing, but the context is different. So try both, but choose wisely then.
And same test, like it will be a different test on the day, but I mean, same structure exactly.
The same test. So if you studied for one, you can easily sit the other one as well.
And tuition fees, are they different from your regular tuition fees for medicine?
Yes, it is different. Medicine, it's always a little bit more expensive because you access the hospital, all the facilities, of course, and really you have top-notch kind of facilities at Cattolica. It is 18,000 euros, and it's a flat fee for both European and non-European students, both in Rome and in Bolzano.
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive, of course, but it's still compared to, when you look at the markets in Europe or around the world for medicine, it's not that bad.
No, especially because I think one thing that I really appreciate about this program is not just a medical program translated into English. It is a program that was created to prepare international doctors. And so we have also many contacts for clinical rotations in the States. Our program director has worked in Boston many years. There are many visitors, professors as well that come from international schools, medical schools. We also have a double degree with Thomas Jefferson University in Philadelphia in the States. So it is really an international program that opens up the doors, not just to academic excellency, but also to an international career. Students, for example, can take the USMLE, step 1 and 2, with us in Rome, and then they can decide to take the third step of the program in the States in case they wanted to continue their specialization in the United States, for example.
That's great.
So I would say it's a good deal.
Yeah, it sounds like a good deal. One last question before we open to the floor, because I'm sure we have questions in the room. In terms of accommodation for when they get to Cattolica, their first year, is it a guaranteed accommodation for all first-year international students, or do you have to apply for it? How does it work for?
So for Rome, for medicine and Bolzano, it is guaranteed accommodation, but they still have to apply for that. So we reserved spots for our soon-to-be doctors because we understand it's a very, very demanding program. So under that respect, they are fully covered. For the other programs in Milan, Piacenza, and Brescia, instead, we partner up with external providers, and then we facilitate the contact. So usually our students, beginning in September, start looking for accommodation in June, July, and by the time they arrive, they find accommodation. I will be very honest with you, Milan is getting competitive, so it is on our strategic plan to provide further and more help to international students. I'm telling you what it is right now. Students search independently through the providers we selected, so there's no fraud risk. They are, of course, taken care of. But yes, at the same time, it's not secured for the first-year students.
All right. Great. Any final word of advice for like a 14, 15, 16-year-old that would be thinking, oh, why not, studying internationally? Why not Italy? Why not Milan and Cattolica? Anything?
Yeah, I think it's important when you are an international student, but this does not apply only to Cattolica. It applies to any university you will select, you will choose. Talk to us. Send an inquiry, call, visit us if you want, and feel it. You have to feel it. I think you need to be happy where you are. You need to feel that you will be successful there, taken care of, especially if you're thinking about going abroad. You will be in a completely different setting and scenario. You want to be as facilitated as possible. So I would say this is what sets us apart. And then possibly having me as an example is use your university. Cattolica has endless opportunities. Once you are in Cattolica, you can do internships abroad, you can do charity programs, language courses, focus programs, semester exchanges, thesis, dissertation research abroad. There's really no limit, double degrees. So there's a world of opportunity. Of course, there's a lot to consider for you right now, but just for you to know, you're not just picking a course and a university, but you're picking the next 3 most important years of your life. So make sure that they give results, that there is a return on your investment. And I can say with Cattolica, you will have it for sure.
I think that's the perfect word to conclude. Thank you so much, Ilaria. I learned quite a lot, and it's a very, very exciting place to study. So thank you so much for your time, and I can't wait to come and visit.
Yes, please. We'll be waiting for you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'll see you on another episode of the Anywhere Uni live podcast. Bye-bye.